Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have the sincere honor of standing before you to talk about a topic that is at the forefront of American culture and is very controversial in nature, particularly as we go into this next presidential cycle or presidential election cycle. Um, the topic I'd like to discuss with you is illegal immigration and the need for immigration reform. Now, folks who are in favor of immigration reform, as well as folks who are in favor of a closed border type or further restricting immigration policy, like to use statistical data and sometimes anecdotal data uh, that favors their side or their cause. Um, and we're all familiar with that. Some of it is verifiable, some of it's not. What I like to speak to you about are three main points that show some of this data or some of these beliefs that have really impeded the process and progress of immigration reform. The first one is that illegal immigrants don't pay into the federal tax or state coffers when they come into this country to work. A recent study by Fiscal Times indicates that illegal immigrants, as well as immigrants on work visas, have contributed $11.8 billion dollars into the tax base of this country. $11.8 billion dollars. Now, these are taxes that these folks are coming into this country and working to make a better life for themselves. These are taxes that they're paying into the coffers of this country that they're not going to have any access to. They don't have access to Medicaid or any of the social services. So those tax dollars that they're paying really benefit the country. Now, the question is, how in the world does an illegal immigrant who doesn't have a social security number, how does that person how's that person able to pay taxes? Well, almost all employers that employ illegal immigrants or folks that come across the border um, have to issue them a tax ID number. And with that tax ID number, obviously the employer has to show that the right amount of taxes are being withheld from these folks' paychecks. And so the argument that illegal immigrants are coming working without paying taxes into the country, um, through adequate statistical data, um, that's just not true. Another argument that is made against immigration reform or against immigration period is that illegal immigration hurts the U.S. economy. When in fact, a New York Times report in February 2013, by Adam Davidson really points to the opposite. Immigrants who come into this country and work typically work unskilled type jobs. Now, coming in and working those unskilled jobs, they complement high-skilled workers, typically American citizens, typically folks that have higher educations, engineers, that type of thing. And how they complement those folks is they come in and they do menial tasks. They do sweeping, they clean up work sites, they basically do the mundane thing, installing toilets, that kind of stuff. And it frees up engineer types and other high-skilled uh, personnel to be able to go on and do what they're well suited to do, the things that they're highly capable of doing. So it actually balances that out and it frees up folks at a higher skill level to do what they were paid to do. The other thing the other thing illegal immigration has done in allowing them to work in our workforce is over the course from 1990 to 2007, high skill work wages increased 10%. They basically allow growth in pay scale. So obviously, illegal immigration or immigrants coming to work here doesn't necessarily impact the economy negatively. Okay, then you add to the fact that these folks are able to spend in their communities, spend on items that we normally use. The third issue that has typically been raised against immigration reform or has kind of rallied the troops, so to speak, about tightening down borders and tightening down immigration. And it was most recently used during a debate and during a presidential run announcement by Mr. Trump, Mr. Donald Trump, and that is illegal immigrants come across the border into the United States and they commit violent crimes. They commit property crimes. The fact of the matter is that in a American Immigration Policy or Council study, although illegal immigration, jumped from 1990 to 2010 exponentially. For instance, in 1990 there was 3.5 million illegal immigrants known to live in, estimated to be living in the United States. In 2010, that number jumped up to 11.2 million. And although those numbers increased exponentially, crime actually decreased during that time. I'll say that again. Crime actually decreased during the time of that rapid increase in illegal immigrants living in the United States, particularly in the border cities, the cities that have a heavy um, number of illegal immigrants. Those crime numbers, dropped off exponentially. And the fact of the matter is, in this study done by the American Immigration Council, which cites FBI and Immigration Policy Center numbers, illegal immigrants are 5 times less likely to commit a crime simply because they're here to make a better life for themselves and to support their families, and because they don't want any contact with law enforcement. It basically hurts their cause. As a matter of fact, it's estimated that illegal immigrants only make up 0.07% of those incarcerated for either violent crimes or property crimes. So the argument that they come across and add to criminal activity just doesn't hold water. And in closing, I'd like for you guys to be able to take from this speech at least three big ticket items that are being used against immigration reform. The fact of the matter is, people are going to continue to come here. We have to look at creative ways to reform immigration so that these folks, if we want them to be here legally, can access a process that allows them to do that and do that efficiently and more effectively. Thank you guys for listening to me. I appreciate your time. Have a wonderful evening.